Welcome to the Podcast Marketing Magic live training session. I am here, your host, Seth Green, ready to go, ready to share with you exactly what you're looking for. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a minute. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We are going to dive right in. So you are here to discover how to get impossible to reach decision makers to seek you out. So if there's a Mr. or Mrs. Big, a Mr. or Mrs. CEO that if you could just get in front of because of who they are or who their company is or what they do or who they knew, they could have a huge impact on your business. This is how you do it. If you would like to write a book or write another book, but you don't want to actually have to write it yourself, this is how to do that. I'm going to show you the distance from your brain to your hand. It's a lot longer than the distance from your brain to your mouth, which is why you should not write your book, but you shouldn't just talk your book either. I'm going to show you a way that works better than both. And I'm going to show you how 20 minutes a week can get 20 people referring your business like crazy. So without any further ado, let's dive right in. And you will discover the system I created that is working for me. And then we started using it for clients, and it's worked for almost all of them. So I'm going to share with you exactly how we do it. And then I'm hoping I will inspire you to do it yourself, because I want you to get the same results. So why podcasting? You should have an action guide in front of you. Hopefully that you downloaded and printed out and are ready to fill out to take really good notes. So I'm going to back up a little bit. I don't want to assume everybody knows what a podcast is. A podcast is like a radio show on your phone. So why would you want a radio show on your phone? Well, as of right now, there are over 1 billion people listening to podcasts on their phone. It's 1 billion listeners. That's a big audience. And that number is actually projected to triple if you're filling out your notes. The number is projected to triple by 2020. And I'll tell you why in a minute. I have what gives me how have I earned the right to talk about this? I wrote the best-selling book, Podcast Marketing Magic. This just got picked up by a major publisher, where I interviewed some of the world's top podcasters and got them to share their secrets, and that inspired this service. I have a top-rated podcast myself, Direct Response Marketing. We are been as high as number 3 on iTunes, and I get to every day interview amazing thought leaders, luminaries, household names in our industry and others, people that otherwise I couldn't get to, that I get to because I have a show, and I'll show you how you can do the same thing. Now, I said that the number of podcast listeners was going to triple, which means it's going to go from 1 billion to 3 billion. The reason that's happening is you're looking at it right now. This is Apple CarPlay. Apple recently signed a deal with just about every major car manufacturer. So what's going to happen is the next new car you buy, your dashboard is going to look like this. It's going to come pre-bundled with the Apple Podcast interface right here, is a native app, which means you cannot delete it even if you want to. So let's pretend you are one of the few people left in the country or the world who does not have an iPod, iPad, iPhone, or iMac. You will now have an iCar, whether you like it or not. Apple is attempting to do away with Sirius, an XM satellite radio, and the podcast app is how they're going to do it. So there will be 3 billion people listening to podcasts, searching for you, and some of them are going to be searching for you and what you do. But if you don't have a podcast, how are they going to find you? One of the other most used apps on a smartphone other than social media is the Amazon app, the Kindle app. So they're going to be looking for you there too. And if you don't have a book, how are they going to find you? You got to have a podcast, you got to have a book, and I will show you how you can have both for the price of two for the price of one, kill two birds with one stone, whatever analogy you want to insert. That's why the time to do this is now. This is the new ground floor of podcasting. So if you've been hesitating, if you haven't done it yet, that's okay. You didn't miss the party. The real party is starting now. So we want to make sure you jump on board the podcast train this time. Who am I? Why should you listen to me? In case you don't know, I have written 6 best-selling books: Financial Advisor Marketing Magic, Real Estate Marketing Magic, Cutting Edge Marketing Magic, Online Marketing Magic, The Facebook Ninja, and Podcast Marketing Magic, which we're talking about tonight. I have been nominated by the smiley guy to my right, Dan Kennedy, the highest paid marketing consultant on the planet, for his prestigious Marketer of the Year award 3 years in a row, which I'm the only person in history, as far as I know, who's done that, who he's picked 3 years in a row. And I've been featured on real media: the Wall Street Journal, CBS Money Watch, CNN, NBC, Boston Globe, Miami Herald, USA Today, CNN, etc., etc., etc. But it didn't start out that way. I went to Syracuse University for undergrad, and my original undergraduate major was acting. You see, at the age of 18, my life goal was to be a Broadway star. You see how that worked out. I get to be on this stage right now instead of Broadway. The reason for that is that my senior year, 2 of my friends and I decided to produce a musical called The Mystery of Edwin Drood by Charles Dickens that none of you have ever heard of, for very good reason. And that was my first mistake. The second mistake was that when we had raised the money to produce the musical from the student government, it turned out that, well, they made a mistake. The bylaws of Syracuse University prevented them from giving us, a first-year organization, so much money, and they didn't realize it till 6 weeks before opening night, when they reclaimed half of our budget. And I had a choice of closing the show that was 6 weeks from opening, or figure out a way to make the money. Well, I didn't exactly figure out a way to make the money. If you remember Top Gun with Tom Cruise, this guy, the Admiral, says to him, "Son, your ego's writing checks your body can't cash." And that's what I did. I said to my 2 friends, "Guys, I got this brilliant idea where we're going to get the money. I have all these pre-approved credit card applications on my dining room table. Why don't I just fill them out and fudge the numbers a little bit? Say I claim that I make a lot more than I do in my part-time job while I'm at college. And if they go for it, we'll just charge the show." And my friend said, "Well, how are we going to pay the money back?" And I said, "We'll sell tickets." And they said, "Okay, great. What if we don't sell enough tickets?" I said, "Well, then you guys will get credit cards. We'll split it 3 ways, and then, we'll go get real jobs when we graduate and pay it back." And they said, "Okay, do it." And I did it, except I knew nothing about marketing at the time, which was my second mistake, because we did not sell very many tickets to a show that no one has ever heard of. So I went to my friends. I said, "Guys, got to get credit cards." They went to their parents. Their parents said, "No way." I was left holding all of the debt, which I could not pay back, and I had to go bankrupt. It really sucked. I had to Chapter 7, and I'm sitting in bankruptcy court, and the trustee looks down his glasses, bifocals at me and says, "I don't understand. Your application says this is for a musical. Explain this to me." So I told him the story, and he said, "Wow, I thought I had seen everything. I've been doing this for 30 years, but I've never seen this one before. I bet you I can get the other trustees to buy me a beer tonight for happy hour. This one takes the cake." I said, "I'm glad this is funny to you, sir, but this is my life." So I realized that I had just borrowed a bunch of money to gamble on something I knew nothing about and lost. So I should probably pick a different career choice. So I decided I'd go become a financial advisor. It's logical, right, Lisa? I mean, that makes sense, from actor to financial advisor. So I went to work for a Fortune 500 company called A.G. Edwards, and my branch went to training, passed my license Series 7, and life insurance and all my exams. It's my first day of production, and my branch manager says, I got you a book where every client is going to come from your entire career. And I said, oh my God, this is great. I'm going to go buy a Ferrari with all this money. This is fantastic. Let me have it. And he reaches behind his desk and hands me the phone book, literally the phone book, and says, it's the white pages, Tiger. They're all in there. Go get them. And I did not know any better. So I listened because he was my boss, and I made 300 cold calls a day, interrupting strangers, asking them for money to invest for years, banging my head against the wall. And if you've ever cold called, you know how much it sucks. Well, the good news is it didn't last forever, because in my spare time, one of my hobbies, one of my two hobbies, is that I am a professional magician. And I was reading a magazine for magicians, a trade journal, and there was a full-page ad for a marketing course for magicians. So I went to my parents. I said, Mom and Dad, I went bankrupt. I'm just starting this career. I don't have the money to buy this, but it looks really cool. Will you get it for me instead of a birthday present? And they said, sure. So I got the marketing course. I implemented it, and I became the busiest, most expensive magician in Buffalo, where I live, in 30 days. And it had nothing to do with my skill as a magician. I didn't learn any more tricks, but I became a better marketer. So I went to the gentleman, Dave D., who sold me the course, and I said, would this work in my real job as a financial planner? He said, yes. I said, where did you learn it? He said, the two words that changed my life. He said, Dan Kennedy. So I start buying Dan Kennedy books. I start buying Dan Kennedy tapes. I start buying Dan Kennedy conferences, Dan Kennedy products. And along the way, I meet my soulmate and I get married. I eventually get to do a consultation, about a year later, with Dan. And I say, I've improved my business somewhat, but I'm not doing everything Dan says. I'm still doing still 80% of my business is coming from cold calling at this point. It's down from 100, but it's 80. It's still a lot. So I say, Dan, what do I do? He says, you're doing everything your industry teaches you, which is completely, completely wrong. He said, write me this really big check and I'll change your life. Obviously, his pitch was a whole lot better than that, but I'm speeding this up so we can get to the good stuff. So I go home to my wife and I say, honey, 12 months ago, we got married. 9 months ago, we bought our first house. 3 months ago, we had our first baby. 3 weeks ago, you quit your job to be a stay-at-home mom of our new baby, Max. And I need to go borrow more than our new mortgage to go hire this guy, Dan. And she says to me, no. She says, didn't you tell me a story about you borrowing money that didn't work out so well? I'm going to say no to this. So I came back the next day. I asked her the same question. She gave me the same answer. We played out this little pattern for 30 days in a row, with her answers getting more and more intense, shall we say, till day 31, when she finally caved and said, you better pray this works. So it did. So I hired Dan, and oh boy, it did work. He quadrupled my revenue in 2 years. He took me from the bottom of the barrel at AG Edwards, 6,699th ranked advisor, to the top 30 in the country for opening new accounts in 2 years. So it worked. And I said, Dan, this is amazing. What do I do now? And he said, I said, do I just keep doing this for the next 30 years? And he said, well, you could, or you could also start a marketing company and do this for other people. And I said, that sounds good to me. Let's do that too. So I started Market Domination LLC 8 years ago. Started out as me and one client, a financial advisor who called because they read about me in the #1 industry trade journal, Registered Rep magazine, is the antidote to cold calling. And they wanted to stop cold calling too. And he called me and he said, hey, can I hire you to fix that for me too? And I said, sure. And he was our first client. And now Market Domination LLC is an office building full of awesome team members. And we serve clients literally all over the globe. Along the way, I wrote 6 best-selling books. And let's talk about what we're here to talk about tonight. Let's talk about how podcasting is your freedom. It's your freedom from so many of the challenges we're facing. Because do you know where your next referral is coming from? I speak at marketing conferences every single month almost. It's driving my wife crazy, but I have a lot of fun doing it, and it pays well. And I always ask my audiences, where do you get the majority of your business from? And 80% of them will say like word of mouth and referrals. And I'll say, oh, great. How many referrals are you going to get next month? And the deer in the headlights every time. Nobody knows. It's because you don't have a proven system that generates referrals on a regular basis. They're just taking them as they come in. So this solves that problem. This solves the lead problem. It solves the how am I going to get to where am I going to get to problem. And let's show you how. iTunes is not a social network. iTunes is a media platform. Fill that in your action guide. iTunes is a media platform. And once you have an account on a media platform, that makes you a reporter. It's a huge distinction. It's really important. What do reporters do? Caden, what do? They interview people. Now, if you get cold called to buy something, a lot of times you hang up. A lot of times you're not interested. But if I'm not saying you should call anybody to book them on an interview because we'll do all the marketing for you. But if you're doing it yourself, but let's say you did. Let's say you made a phone call to Mr. CEO, to whoever, and said, "I'd like to interview you on my podcast. Are you open to a media appearance?" That's a whole lot better reception you're going to get because 9 times out of 10 they'll say yes. The 10th time they might say, "Tell me more," than if you just said, "Hi, give me money." So who can your podcast get you in front of? Literally anyone. This is one we produce called the Outdoor Boardroom for a golf coach, Gary Okino, playgolflikethepros.com. And Gary's wave a magic wand dream ideal client is a large company CEO who plays golf, who can afford to pay Gary $5,000 to fly him out, plus expenses, to fly him out for 2 days to go give him a golf lesson, as opposed to him getting paid $75 a lesson on his local golf course because the expert's always from out of town. And Gary's gotten in front of Fortune 500 CEOs who responded to I would love to be on a show and talk about golf and business and my life. So your podcast can get you in front of anybody. What if you want referrals? What if you don't want the guests themselves to be the client, but you want their clients to become your clients? This is an estate planning attorney. And for his project, he interviewed financial planners and CPAs and nursing home directors. And they're all in the book because we turned the podcast into a book. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And then they all bought copies of the book to hand out to their clients. And then when their client was looking to get their legal work done, they went and saw our client, Richard, because he's the one who wrote the book that their advisor just gave them. Do you see how that works? Do you see how that totally changes the dynamic? This is John Cito. He is a divorce financial analyst. He wanted recognition from the New Jersey divorce lawyers who wouldn't give him the time of day. But once he interviewed them for his show and puts them in his book, he now has 17 of them who he gets to talk to on a regular basis. And I'll show you how we arrange that later to get referrals every month that was not happening before. That's my wife and kids. The bigger reason why I do this, that's Rebecca, Max, Ella, and Lily. Shameless kid shot. And then this is one of my passion projects. I make microloans to third world entrepreneurs through kiva.org to help them start or grow their businesses and get out of poverty, because I believe entrepreneurs are going to save the world, not our government. I can't fit all 750 of them that we've helped on this slide, but I just wanted you to see a percentage of our profits go to Kiva. Not telling you to do that, just something I'm passionate about. So what are these steps to successful podcasting? You want to write these down. Number one, you need a concept and a name. You saw some examples like estate planning experts or divorce experts or the outdoor boardroom, and we can talk about some more. You need interview questions because you're a reporter and you're going to interview people, and they should follow our proven psychological format to get the guest most excited to share the show and share the book because they're sharing their own message and they're happy about the way it came about. And you need guests. You need people to interview. That guest could be either your ideal client, someone you want to turn into business, or it could be your ideal center of influence, somebody who can refer you lots of your ideal clients. Give you a little sneaky trick on iTunes on how to get your podcast to show up higher on iTunes. For example, in the search bar, I searched personal branding, and the iTunes is left to right. So the very first podcast, ranked #1 for personal branding, is Life is a Marathon. But if you'll notice, his title is Life is a Marathon, Life Coaching, Self-Esteem, Personal Development, Personal Branding, Positive Thinking. And his author name is not Bruce Van Horn. It's Bruce Van Horn, life coach, motivational speaker, thought leader, author, blogger, runner. Why is he doing that? Keywords. Those are keywords he wants to rank for. And iTunes gives you all of those characters as spaces. But if you look, most podcasts don't use them. So if you do, you'll have an immediate edge. And there's a whole bunch of other tricks on how to get your podcast to show up higher in the iTunes store that we can do for you. I mentioned earlier, a podcast is like a radio show on your phone. So if it's a radio show, it has to sound like a radio show. So what that means is you need an introduction, and it shouldn't be you on air. It should be somebody else, a professional voiceover artist, doing the introduction to music that is relevant and, whatever to the theme of your show. That introduction should be scripted, and it should position you as the expert in your niche. It should tell them what to do next, like go to your website to get something. And it should be a lead generation ad for the show, because you want to tell people why they should listen to the show. How are you going to record the show? What equipment do you need? That is the most common question we get. Here's the good news. You don't need any. You can go in iTunes and go in the App Store and get the Call Recorder app. The app itself is free. You just have to pay for the airtime, the minutes that you use. And you can use that to record the interview. I would literally show you how the app works in a minute. You can also record on Skype. Skype records great audio. You can record, it doesn't matter. You don't need to go spend $300 on a mic. It's funny, there was a famous podcaster the other day who put out a blog post saying, if you spend more than $150 on a mic, you're a fool. You don't need to spend any of it. I'm doing this webinar right now, and I do all my Skype call interviews when I record on Skype on a Microsoft headset. It was like $30. So the technology, not a barrier to entry anymore. And of course, you need your introduction produced. So here, this is the App Store. I type in Call Recorder. That's the app. I open up Call Recorder. I have to buy credits. Again, you got to buy airtime. You hit the blue button. And then when I want to record something, I hit the big red record button. They've made it pretty simple to use. It calls in. I then pick a contact, the person I'm going to interview. Wait till they're on the phone. Then I hit merge calls, and we're recording. Then at the end, I hang up, and the app says you have a new recording available. What would you like us to do with it? And you say, email it to Seth, and his team will take care of it. Or you email it to yourself. You need cover art. Cover art affects the way you rank in iTunes and how many people will listen to you, because, again, the thumbnail is all they see on their phone. So examples of good, clean cover art. This is Ted Padromo, the LinkedIn for Business podcast. This is his cover art that we did. We've got a good picture of Ted. We've got a URL for Ted. We've got his name and his title, the title of the podcast, a mic, and then the LinkedIn background. If you type in trading system, you will find our client, Stephen Kowitzel, the Expert Trading System podcast, who is #3 for trading system. If you type in LinkedIn, Ted's actually #1 now, but when I took the screenshot, he was #3. This is the Denture Success podcast by Dr. Rick Jackomas, our client. So again, I got a picture of him. I got the title. I got him. I got a mic. And then I got a clean graphic in the background and teeth, because he's a dentist. So they know what they're getting when they click on it. I thought this was really cool. Ivan Misner, founder of BNI, largest networking organization in the world. I interviewed Ivan on my show. He interviewed me on his show. If you type in Ivan Misner, my interview of him ranks higher for his name than the 438 shows he's done under his own name, which is really cool. And I sent that to Ivan. I said, who's marketing your podcast? You might want to have them talk to us, because you should rank higher for yourself than I did. But we got some sneaky tricks they apparently don't know about. You type in real estate agent, Gary Wilson, our client, comes up #3 out of all of them. And that's his cover art. So again, you need a professionally produced introduction. How are you going to get your podcast to iTunes? Where are you going to host it? There's a million places that'll do that for you. We like Libsyn.com. I do not get paid for telling you that. I'm not an affiliate. But it's really easy to use. And every time, and you're going to tell iTunes that, hey, I've got an account at Libsyn, and every time I post an episode, you automatically put it on iTunes. And that is exactly what will happen. Every time you post it to Libsyn, it will go to iTunes. So you just repeat with every episode. How you're going to turn it into a book, you're going to transcribe it. You're going to transcribe your episodes and then edit them and turn that into a book. You're going to need a foreword and a conclusion and some chapters about you and your message and your call to action and why you're fabulous. So it reads like more of a book. But that's what it takes. That's what you're looking at. People always ask what our secret sauce is. Our secret sauce is the multi-step, multimedia, direct response campaign we send to impossible to reach decision makers or centers of influence to get them to do the show and be in the book. That's our secret sauce. We also send a direct mail campaign that goes from the show guest to their clients, telling them about the show and then telling them about the book. And we write it in their voice for them. And you get to take all the credit for that. How much would all of those campaigns cost you? Well, if you hire Dan Kennedy, he'd charge you $100,000 plus royalties in perpetuity. Other copywriters, I mean, we charged $6,000 the other day for a client who needed a 3-step direct mail campaign rewritten because their existing copywriter that they paid $3,000 for, the campaign didn't work. But you're not going to pay any of that because we'll give it to you and do it all for free. Does that sound good? I'm hoping that you're going to be our next success story. Whether you do it yourself, please share with me your successes, or if you want us to do it for you, then obviously we'll know you're succeeding. Because if all this does for you is get you in front of your dream referral and sources and prospects, is it worth it? If all it does is get your next book or your first book done without you having to write it, is it worth it? And if all it does is get you new customers, clients, and patients, is it worth it? The answer to all those is yes. So how does Podcast Marketing Magic, our service, work? We create the podcast for you. We'll create the professional introduction for you. We'll script it and produce it. We'll find the guests for you with our proven research and marketing campaign. We'll script your interview questions. We'll edit your audio. We'll upload it to iTunes. We'll SEO it on iTunes. We'll market it on social media. All done for you. Then we'll transcribe and edit every episode. We'll do the graphic design, layout, and publishing of your book. We will market and promote the book. We'll provide marketing materials to send out to the people in the book and then materials for them to send to their clients, customers, and patients, all driving a ton of business back your way, all done for you. We do all the work. All you have to do is show up once a week, do one interview, and be fabulous. Normally, just the podcast alone is $9.97 a month, but we are doing a marketing test right now to see how well our webinar conversion changes if we change our pricing. So $4.97 a month will get you the podcast. It's normally $2,000 a month for 4 months to get you the podcast and the book. We'll cut that in half too. So $9.97 a month for 4 months will get you the podcast and the book. And in 12 months, you'll have a ton of new business. And I'll show you why. Because after the 4 months are up and the book is done, if you continue with us, we'll produce your book launch party where everyone in the book gets together for a big party at a restaurant with press and guests celebrating the launch of your book. And then we facilitate a monthly book mastermind group where everyone gets together every single month and passes business back and forth, which is how after 2 or 3 months of it, you know, okay, it's been 90 days. I got 14 referrals a month for the last 90 days. Next month, I can be pretty sure I'm getting another 14. Because if you think about it, everybody's going to keep seeing new clients and new prospects and going to want more copies of your book to hand out to them. So every new person through their door is a new person through your door. We'll also throw in a month free of virtual assistant services from our friends at 123 Employee so you can test them out and see how helpful having a virtual assistant can make your life easier. I also teach our cutting edge marketing strategies, not just this, but everything we do for our clients for 2 to 3 hours every single month. Admission to that group is normally $364. I will give you a year's worth for free. Don't worry, you don't have to fly to Buffalo. You can watch the videos online and keep up with everybody in the group. There is a membership site where we all talk to each other, ask each other questions, and help each other out. It's been really gratifying to watch grow. We've got about 100 people in it. We'd love to have you in it as well, and I will throw that in for free as well. But wait, I realize that this isn't the first webinar or training session you've ever attended. And if we think about it, here's you on the left, and the pot of gold is where you want to get to on your right. but there's this big valley in between, and you can't jump that far. So what do you need to get you from point A to point B? You need a bridge. Doing a podcast, turning into a book is a bridge. But the only problem is you might get started on your own and the phone rings, wife gets sick, client comes in, and you don't get the bridge all the way done. And you end up with a half-built bridge that goes to nowhere. Life gets in the way, work gets in the way. I understand how that goes. Heck, you might have attended a whole bunch of these and have a pile of unimplemented, unfinished marketing ideas on your desk. You might even have a whole 3-ring binder full, in which case you have a whole bunch of unfinished bridges. I don't want that to happen here. So here's what I'm willing to do. There are 73 bridges, in my opinion. We call it our 73-point double your sales checklist of everything we can think of to market a business. We will walk you through it all, find every single one of them. What are you doing? What aren't you doing? What's the opportunity score? And then rank them and say, of what you're not doing, what would have the biggest, fastest impact on your business? And then you'll have a prescription of exactly what you need. And then at that point, you can go do it yourself. You can go talk to someone else. Or if you want to talk to us about building some of those bridges for you, we are happy to. But that strategy session is objective and no pressure and no sales pitch. It's just meant to get you on the right track and get you informed. If you want to do that, go to ultimatemarketingmagician.com/strategy-session. They are free, as long as I've got time in my schedule to do them. If, however, you know that the podcast into book strategy will work for you, and that's the bridge you want to start with, just go to podcastmarketingmagic.com/done for you, and you can get all the details and sign up for that right away. I am going to now take a breath and then open up for questions and answers. Please type them in the chat box. Okay, we have questions coming in. Could you repeat the name of author on marketing course? Sure, Alisa. Are you talking about the marketing course I bought for magicians was put out by Dave D. D-A-V-E-D-D-E-E. And he is now the chief marketing officer for Dan Kennedy's organization, Glazer Kennedy Insider Circle. Another question. You said it's $2,000 a month for 4 months. Why is it for 4 months? Oh, because on average, so it's going to take a few weeks for us to do the research, do the marketing, get the campaign out the door to start getting you guests. So after the first 3 weeks, you'll be doing about an interview every week. And it generally takes about 4 months total from start to finish to have done enough interviews to turn into a finished book. After that, obviously people continue with us to do the book launch party, to do the monthly book mastermind group, and then to keep getting them guests and producing new episodes of their show, because they have an audience now and they want to keep providing them with content, or they may come up with another list of people that they want to interview and get in front of and build relationships with. So we'll go get them. But after the first 4 months, you're not under any obligation to continue. It's just your choice. Where do we get the books? So we publish them for you. Your book will be on Kindle. It will be on Amazon. And you can also buy physical copies from us in-house because we print cheaper than Amazon does. So on average, depending on the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. But you're talking maybe $3 a copy. And then you can resell them for whatever you want. So we do publish through Amazon and people can buy them online and Amazon will ship them to them. But even if you buy at Amazon cost, it will be much more than buying them from us. We do not make any money selling books. Who owns the podcast and the book? You do. It's all your intellectual property. We have had clients who didn't continue. It goes with you. So, for example, we start off hosting everything on our master account on Libsyn. But if for whatever reason you need to move it because you are leaving or because you're switching providers or something, we'll move it to your own account. You can set up your own account on Libsyn and we'll move everything over. You own all the audio files. You own everything. You own the cover art. You own the book. It's all you. Why did you have people not continue? Oh, I had one client not continue because they got so busy they couldn't. I had two who stopped because they couldn't keep up with the business. And they said, give me a couple months to catch up. And I said, okay, you realize you're going to go a couple months without airing anything. And people who are used to getting a notification on their phone every week that you had a new episode up may unsubscribe to you if you disappear. And they said, I got to take that risk. I don't have time right now. So we had a couple of people who got too busy, past performance, no guarantee of future success, and they left. They both promised, of course, that they would be back because it worked. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So if you want a strategy session, it's ultimatemarketingmagician.com / here. I'll type them both in. ultimatemarketingmagician.com / strategy -session. And if you want to sign up or get the details on signing up, it's podcastmarketingmagic.com / John for you. Okay, well, awesome. I hope I've given you a lot of great ideas. I hope you are inspired to take action, more importantly. If you do it yourself, let me know how it goes. If you want to talk to us about doing it with us, do a strategy session. If you're ready to sign up, go for it. And we look forward to working with you. Thanks, everybody.